Today I want to ask the question, is old lore better or is new lore an opportunity? Hey everybody, my name is Ronald and today we're going to dive into the lore of Games Workshop versus one-page rules, how they compare and why one-page rules growing universe is actually kind of an exciting place to be right now. And I do want to ask the question, is old lore better or is new lore more of an opportunity? I have been playing Games Workshop for a long time. Have been collecting miniatures. It's the first war game that I really got excited about when me and my buddies were introduced to it in middle school. So that's been a long time from now. And honestly, Games Workshop has been building lore over the last 40 years, which can be a really big upside because, well, there's a lot of lore out there. If you're the one who cares about lore and stories and knowing and seeing new fascinating things, Games Workshop has a lot for you to go out there and see. They have tons of books on, single eras in their lore alone. Novels upon novels upon novels that they have been writing and developing and working on for decades, which can be good. There's an expansive lore to that. There are massive worlds that you and I as players can go and explore. But do you feel more like a spectator rather than an active participant when you're looking at hundreds of books on things that are happening? To me, it can feel a little overwhelming too, of just like where to start. I remember watching a video where some creators were attempting to figure out where to tell someone to just begin reading the lore of the Horus Heresy. And, I believe there was screaming after book 4.
And the first 4 books, they are chronological, so that's easy. But things get interesting when you get to book 5.
So it can be really frustrating to get into the Warhammer lore because maybe you just don't know where to start. Or maybe you're like me who's been playing for long enough to where there was some really heavy retcons slash new storylines that have shifted that kind of make it difficult to track the changes in the lore. For example, Horus Heresy and 40K's kind of stagnant timeline. I say stagnant because, well, the story hasn't progressed much until maybe the last 5 years or so with the introduction or reintroduction of the Primarchs. Before this, Primarchs didn't exist, and when they did begin to exist in the story and the lore, it was just the idea that they're long gone. Well, now they're coming back, and that's really been the first bit of movement in the story of Games Workshop. Or it could be the massive retconning of the old world versus Age of Sigmar. Again, hear me, I'm biased. I will openly admit this. I came into Warhammer playing the Empire army of, 6th edition. And so I really enjoyed the story of what was going on in the old world. And I loved the expansive, like, oh, the dark elves are over here, and, here's a human empire followed by Britonia, and the ogres way over this way. And you could look at these big, expansive world maps that got blown up. I wasn't a big fan of them blowing up my fun world because I really enjoyed that world. It was where I came to fall in love with Warhammer. And so now I'm figuring out that my world is not just, a fantasy planet, but planes of existence. That for me, it feels kind of difficult to track. And the destruction of the old world was really it felt like a rug pull to me. And I didn't really like it. However, there is now one-page rules, which I know a lot of people critique and say, hey, OPR is just Warhammer Light, and so therefore, the lore isn't there. Well, let me push back a little bit. As OPR is growing, there's actually been some really neat stories that grow along with it. For example, you might not know that OPR actually has right now some ongoing narrative campaigns where they are sharing with us, the players, what is happening. And in fact, you can, for free, go on to One Page's Rules website and read a whole bunch of lore about how the Grimdark setting got there, and you could even find out a lot more about the fantasy setting as well. And what I enjoy about this is it all seems new and fresh and helps me as a player feel like I'm more involved because there's more space for headcanon and homebrew and personal stories that get released into this. There actually are 2 world books just to let you get a glimpse into what's going on in both settings. The Grimdark Future World book and the Fantasy World book. One that lets you kind of explore, what their worlds are, how they got there, all these kind of things. It's really interesting. The Grimdark Future World book talks about how the, Earth went through this massive civil war, and people were fleeing the Civil War, and the Battle Brothers, aka Space Marines, were chasing them, and everybody got sucked up into this one big wormhole, jump gate type thing, and they ended up in the Sirius sector where all of these aliens now are. And so humans aren't the dominated force, they've actually just been inserted into this crazy alien world and galaxy. It's been really kind of cool to dive into. And then on the fantasy end, it talks more about how things were great, but then there were the Havoc Wars, where the Havoc gods came and wrecked a whole bunch of stuff. And now everything seems to be not just in limbo, but actually actively moving and changing. And I do kind of like that it's not tied down with a whole bunch of legacy baggage of people who have expectations on the lore because of, OPR is new. And so if you are a Games Workshop fan, Warhammer or, Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40,000, thank you, I would suggest that it's actually a great time to get into One Page Rules, because where it feels like GW's lore is already set in stone, OPR is allowing players to kind of grow with the universe. Your stories matter more with One Page Rules. What's really cool about OPR is they actively listen to their players. And it is neat to get involved in the lore of One Page Rules, because unlike Games Workshop, where you have like everybody's kind of the bad guy, that's Games Workshop's tendency, where everything's kind of inherently evil. Even the goodest of guys are really kind of bad guys when you think about it. OPR swings the other direction, where they say most everybody's actually good. There aren't puppy kickers in One Page Rules lore. Instead, the bad guys are really the outliers, the odd actors who are having influence on the good guys, where it feels more nuanced. Instead of get rid of the aliens at all costs, instead there's more this idea of, well, we're trying to get along, but perhaps just our ideologies might be a little different here, or we kind of want the same thing, but I find it to be really exciting because of what it is. And because of this, to me, it feels like there's less gatekeeping. People aren't saying, hey, that didn't happen because of all these different wikis that I can point to and say that, these stories are set in stone and they have to fit like this and work like this. Instead, there's some more freedom to tweak or add to the setting without the fear of breaking the canon or whatever that might be. At any rate, I agree. Games Workshop has a ton of lore, which is exciting and fun to read and go over, but it can feel overwhelming and massive, whereas One Page Rules is young and flexible and able to grow and adapt. I would encourage you, if you like Warhammer's lore, to explore the lore of One Page Rules and consider how you might jump into it. What do you think? Do you think that it's better to have a really deep, granular history from Games Workshop? or the open potential of one-page rules. I would love to hear your ideas down in the comments. And because I am the size channel that I am, I will more than likely be able to interact with you. So, hey, thank you so much for listening to me rant just a little bit about the lore of one-page rules. I would love to hear your take on it. And if you did enjoy this video, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Every little bit helps me get some more word out about this new game that I've really enjoyed and come to love called One Page Rules, and I would love to share that with other people as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.